Glowstringing and poi spinning, sister arts or one and the same? The question came up again recently, and asking around led me to the conclusion that it's complicated. Let's take a look. Drex here from Drex Factor Poi, sharing with you the love of poi spinning and flow arts to benefit your body and brain. In this video, we're going to take a look at two movement arts that seem to have a lot in common at first blush. Are they the same thing? Are they not? Inquiring minds want to know. Before we dive in though, I just want to give a quick shout out to the friends of the channel. Big thanks to Dark Monk, Fire Mecha, Flow Fests, Flow Toys, Juggling Calling, Pyroterror Light Toys, Spinballs, and Ultrapoi for helping to make the videos on this channel possible. You can learn more about all these amazing businesses and what they're doing to support flow artists like yourself by checking out the links that I've got down in the description of this video. And special thanks to non-business friends of the channel, Johnny Howard, Lain Mochinsky, and Pekha Pekkonen. Thank you all so very much for your support for my work and my mission. The trouble here starts a couple years ago when I uploaded my video on what I considered to be the 6 schools of poi spinning, which, if you haven't already, you should check that out because I think a lot of it is still pretty fire. Even at the time I uploaded it, there were some people that wondered if I might not have overlooked a school. Why wasn't glowstringing on the list? I was reminded of this question a couple weeks ago when it got posed again, and this time around, I had reason to dig a little deeper in. Lately, I've actually been finding myself on a bit of a glowstringing kick in that I've found there are dance applications for the style that I hadn't considered before. I'm in the process of learning many glowstringing techniques that weren't a part of the poi spinning canon that I learned in the 2000s and 2010s, and it made me curious why they weren't part of the poi canon. But I'm getting a little ahead of myself here. When I'm referring to glowstringing, what exactly am I talking about? I would define glowstringing as part of the broader movement art of glowsticking. That is a dance art usually associated with EDM or electronic music communities in which dance and body movement are augmented through the use of glowing props, usually in a rod-shaped form factor. This may take the form of freehanding, in which the props are held and traced around the body in various ways, or glowstringing, in which the props are attached to a flexible tether, such as a shoelace, and swung around the body in various ways. Because this art is primarily practiced at very crowded dance parties, it favors techniques that can be performed within the body space of the performer or within a very small bubble a few inches out from their body. From what I've seen, I'd consider glowsticking to be the umbrella term for this overall movement art, and freehanding and glowstringing to be variations within it. And right off the bat, we've definitely got some stuff to untangle here. Pun not intended. Because while some aspects of glowsticking, notably glowstringing, definitely seem to have things in common with poi, I'd argue that freehanding does not. So while glowstringing might be considered part of poi spinning, the broader umbrella of glowsticking probably shouldn't be. But this is the first of what turns out to be many complications as we look at the relationships between these two arts. When I first learned poi in the late 2000s, everybody I was learning from had entered poi from the glowstringing world. Many had attended raves and had picked up the art there. Their version of poi consisted not just of weaves and butterflies, but also many different kinds of wraps. Nowadays, with rare exceptions, most of those wraps aren't frequently performed by people who consider themselves poi spinners. But techniques like spiral wraps, orbitals, and gunslingers are all glowstringing techniques that have become part of the poi canon, and that many poi spinners may not even realize have their roots in glowstringing. And a lot of glowstringing as it exists now incorporates flowers, hybrids, extensions, and other poi patterns that came to prominence and popularity in the late 2000s and continue to be popular to this day. So without a doubt, there's a lot of cross-pollination. But are they the same thing? One thing that's clear to me in my research on poi history is that the idea of swinging around objects on strings is something that emerges time and time again throughout many cultures, and there's always at least a few things that are discovered again and again independently. While many glowstringers I've talked to on the topic from the late 90s and early 2000s seem to have been aware of poi, those who performed the art earlier do not seem to have either been aware of or been consciously inspired by it for their own style. I think it's safe to say that at least some of what glowstringing consists of was likewise independently discovered. I actually took this question to the Tech Glowstringing group on Facebook, and I learned a lot of interesting history of the art, how it was refined over the years, and how it first emerged. What I did not get was a consensus on whether or not it's poi spinning. And I think there's a good reason why. Part of what makes this confusing is that modern or contemporary poi spinning is something of a Creole art that's taken pieces from many different antecedents: club swinging, Maori poi spinning, and yes, glowstringing. We use the same name, that is, poi, to describe both the original Maori art that ours derives from, as well as the contemporary art that's been created out of this mix. So while many glowstringers correctly say that their art is older than and has influenced contemporary poi spinning, it is not older than poi itself. I'll also put some cards on the table right now too, because I think a big part of this question comes down to consent. Do glowstringers want to be seen as poi spinners? Here's why that question is important, at least to me. Every so often the question comes up of whether poi is a form of juggling, and that question makes me incredibly uncomfortable because in many ways it feels like an attempt at cultural colonialism. And yes, cishet white American dude who practices an indigenous art. I am fully aware of the irony here. Stick with me. Also, pun once again, not intended. I was aware of juggling for most of my life, and it was never a thing I was terribly interested in learning. My exposure to poi was through fire dancing, then tech poi, and finally the style of poi dance fusion that I've been exploring the past few years. My introduction to, interest in, and continued pursuit of poi has never had anything to do with juggling in any form. Not only that, at multiple points in my career, I've spent time around jugglers who engage in shaming or looking down on poi. It's too easy, too flashy, too silly, what have you. I don't get seen as a fellow movement artist so much as an embarrassing amateur who hasn't learned how to use a real prop yet. So when jugglers try to tell me that they consider poi to be a part of juggling, I find the suggestion not only completely misplaced, but kind of offensive. Not only am I othered for spinning poi within this community that wants to lay claim to the movement art that I've devoted myself to, there's not even a good reason to do so other than a nebulous idea that juggling should somehow be the umbrella term for all prop-based movement arts. That doesn't respect the cultural uniqueness of the arts they're trying to lay claim to. There's a very colonial mindset going on there in which jugglers assert a kind of power and social control over someone else's art. And in most cases, they do that not to offer a wider community to be a part of, but to assimilate other arts and look down on the people that practice them. And caveat here. I have many close friendships with many jugglers, and I've seen some juggling that I think is incredibly cool. This is a problem of groups and the culture around them, not of individuals or the art itself. This is a broader topic for another time, but suffice it to say, as someone who's been on the receiving end of that treatment, it's really important to me not to do it to others. So the question to me isn't whether I consider glowstringing to be a form of poi, but whether glowstringers themselves want to be seen as poi spinners. And honestly, from what I can tell, it doesn't seem like there's a consensus around a strong desire to be categorized as poi, but there is to be seen as a legitimate sister art, and I think that's important. After all, how many of us as poi spinners have looked at glowstringers the same way that jugglers have looked at us, as being the lesser version of the art? I'll confess that until recently, I definitely didn't look at glowstringing as being as involved as poi spinning. I always found glow sticks to be unwieldy on account of their light weight, and saw a lot of glowstringers as being basically just raver kids messing around and not as serious a pursuit as my own work with poi. And I think that's a big part of why the question came up. And perhaps a flaw in my methodology for that original 6 schools video. Is glowstringing an art that deserves our respect? Yes, absolutely. Should it be considered a school of modern poi spinning? That's a little less clear, but it also reverses what the relationship should be recognized as. I listed off Maori poi as one of the schools of poi spinning, but that's not quite right. We are a derivative of these arts in the same way that early rock and roll comes about by playing blues with a country beat behind it. It's not so much that glowstringing is a school of contemporary poi spinning. I think contemporary poi spinning should be thought of as the child art to both Maori poi and glowstringing, and that contemporary poi and glowstringing continue to evolve and influence each other. So maybe a new schools of poi spinning video would be appropriate, one that recognizes our antecedents rather than trying to place contemporary work alongside them and reduce their contributions to merely being schools of poi rather than inspirations for it. And maybe in the meantime we should be asking not whether glowstringing is a part of contemporary poi, but whether contemporary poi is a kind of glowstringing. Either way though, whether a glowstringer wants to also be called a poi spinner, that's up to them, and I think has to be thought of on an individual basis. But for what it's worth, I'm down to welcome any glowstringer who does want the title into the family. Cheers. Did you get anything out of this video? Please make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation going and to help other people find this video. This video would not be possible if not for the wonderful support of all of these amazing people right here. These are my Flow patrons over on Patreon, and they, along with the people listed down in the description, help to make this video and all the videos on my channel possible. Thank you one and all for your support. Do you like my videos? Do you like my flow sessions, vlogs, reviews, combos, and more? I'm on a mission to bring poi spinning and flow arts to the wider world and help people connect with their brains and their bodies. So help me do it. Head on over to patreon.com/DrexFactorPoi and sign up. You can do that at the link in the description or the card that just popped up if you're watching on YouTube. There you can get access to a whole host of rewards and help me along in my mission. Do check that out. Please and thank you. If you'd like to learn more about the history of poi, I have a playlist on that topic available both down in the description as well as up on screen if you're watching on YouTube. Also, if you're watching on YouTube, the algorithm thinks you'll like this top video too if you like this one. Thanks so much for watching. Please make sure to subscribe, get outside and flow today, and I'll see you with a new video on Wednesday. Take care.